Welcome to Soar Higher with Jason Ballard, a podcast developed for leaders by leaders to inspire you to reach your highest altitude possible by providing proven strategies, resources, and expert advice to accelerate your personal and professional success beyond what you thought was possible. Well, I'm Joel Weiland, and I am joined in studio today by your host, Jason Ballard, and we have the distinct pleasure today of welcoming Jeanne Sutton, the 401k lady, and today we're going to be talking about benefits in the new world of business. How are you doing today, Mr. Jason?
Hey, man, I'm doing terrific.
Man, I am very glad to hear it. I'm doing very well as well. And as I said, today we have the wonderful Miss Jeanne Sutton in the studio. Actually, she's not in the studio. She is coming in remote from an entirely different part of the world.
She's in the virtual studio.
She's in the virtual studio.
Even better.
But we're very glad to have her here. How are you doing today, Miss Jeanne?
I'm doing wonderful. Aren't we all virtual like most of the time anyway? Like this can't be that weird anymore.
No, nope. I think we're starting to kind of get used to it. I don't know. Are you used to Zoom meetings by now, Jason?
You know, this whole thing with COVID stuff started all Zoom. People don't even know what Zoom was for the most part. I'd been working in that for many years leading into it. So this is old hat for me, but I'm glad to see everybody else in the world coming around.
Oh man, I don't know if I'm a fan. I get very lonely. There's been probably 10 or 15 days I've worked at home all the way through the pandemic. I about went nuts. But that's also partially because I have two small children that don't like to let me work by myself. So, oh man. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about benefits in just the new world of business that we find ourselves in. COVID has changed a lot. It's changed how we work. It's changed how we expect to show up to work, whether that be, with your pleated, beautiful shirt on top and your sweatpants underneath on Zoom, or coming into an office with really not very many people. Everything's just different. And so management and the people the way that people view leadership of work is different, but ultimately the people that are coming into work, the workforce, is entirely changed in their mindset, in their habits, and so many different things. And so today we want to talk about benefits. And as we lead into that, Jason, you're in the sphere of business coaching. You get to work with a lot of people in the C-suite level, management, ownership style roles. Tell us just briefly the way that you have seen the workforce change over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, dude, it's crazy. Everything's changed. Even though COVID was a pandemic, it was a health-related issue that caused a lot of people a lot of problems. And unfortunately, people got sick. Unfortunately, some people passed away as a result. COVID was a massive disruption to the economy across the entire globe. And so what that has caused is, it highlighted a lot of things that people didn't really pay attention to in their business. That they just kind of brushed off, kind of swept under the rug, issues, challenges, concerns, and they just kind of kept, rolling with the strong economy we had before COVID. Well, COVID caused a lot of disruption, and it caused them to force themselves to go through a transformation in order to stay in business, in order to take advantage of opportunities that the new economy, the new market was creating that was vastly different. And it did it very, very fast at warp speed. So people had to engage. They had to think differently. They had to prepare themselves for the future and be more agile in that process.
Man, ain't that the truth? And I feel like we saw that from the very bottom all the way to the very top. And today, here in the virtual studio to talk to us a little bit about that is Miss Jeanne Sutton. So, Miss Jeanne, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, some things that you've seen in just this industry overall, but then ultimately the ways that you've seen the workforce change over the last couple of years.
Right. So Jeanne Sutton, I'm a certified financial planner and started out for the first 10 years of my career doing that, providing personal financial planning advice and wealth management. But I did migrate about 7 or 8 years ago over to the benefits space, particularly as a 401k or a retirement plan consultant and advisor. And that's been incredibly interesting throughout this whole COVID pandemic and just the Great Resignation and what has since followed. And as much as I love to talk personal financial planning and retirement, it became very obvious to us over the last 18 to 24 months that really isn't what has been on the top of minds of employees. And it's certainly not what employers are struggling with. So we've had to bite a little bit of humble pie and say, what do we need to evolve as in an industry to help employees and help employers with today's challenges?
Wow. And so just give us a little bit of a hint. What are today's challenges that you've seen so far?
Well, I'm sure nobody's heard of it, but last year there was something called the Great Resignation, where 48 million people left their jobs. Some have called it the Great Reckoning. And that's a huge challenge, recruiting and retaining. And on top of the, epiphany that a lot of employees had when they quit their jobs to go on to different lifestyles, we also have economically a major shortage in labor supply to begin with. So on top of our job changers that we've had, we just have a limited labor pool. And when you look at the data, the average person looking for a job really has 3 openings available. So for every one person looking for a job, there's 3 openings available.
Wow.
Right. So that's what we're trying to address. Our clients, our HR departments, our business leaders, have open positions that they need to fill. And they also need help retaining their current employee base. And so that's changed the conversation.
Man, I can definitely see that. And there's definitely just a way in people's minds that I would suppose like approach benefits. And I would assume that's just from maybe their, parents or grandparents talking to them about the retirement plans and the, a couple weeks of vacation that they might get. But I kind of just want to open the floor to you guys. What are some of just the old school ways that people viewed benefits before we talk about some new and exciting and like stuff to look forward to with benefits? What are just some old ways that people have viewed benefits? I'll kick it over to you first, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, no, this is a great topic. I'm so excited to be here with Jeanne as the expert coming in, because this is a hot topic of today. Everybody is stressed and losing sleep over how the heck do we deal with our number one asset, which is people, and lacking those people. They need to find the right types of people to do the work that need to be done. The market's moving forward, the economy's starting to sputter back, and there's a lot of exciting opportunities, but they need people to do it. A lot of those people were fired or laid off or went through all kinds of different transitions during COVID. And now that has forced the workforce in general to look at themselves and say, you know what, there's a lot of different ways that we can do things and still get the ultimate results. And we need different things going forward. I think prior to COVID, things were so, kind of, I'll say structured, but things were going in such a manner where things were kind of cookie cutter and basic, right? They have 401k and there's, standard 2-week PTO and sick leave and basic stuff, that cookie cutter stuff everybody's getting. And the workforce, as we go through COVID and go through all these transitions, they're like, that's not good enough. We need different things. We face different challenges than we did 40 years ago when these benefit plans may have been put together and just kind of plunked along year after year. They need things that are, personalized to them and their needs, their demands, to be a thriving member and contributor to the company and to the economy as a whole.
Ain't that the truth? Ms. Jeanne, what are some ways that you've seen that people have reacted poorly? Not necessarily like them reacted poorly, but just misconceptions or just old school ways from a management perspective that people have viewed benefits and how that's maybe hurt their companies a little bit over the last couple of years.
Well, so it's the great reckoning, right? Like the idea that the employer held all the power, that the employer could say, here's our wonderful benefits package, take it, this is what it is. And the change is now no longer, we offer, these benefits, you take them and it's a one size fits all. The change is becoming, we have to figure out how to design a benefits package with enough flexibility so that each individual employee can opt into programs that make sense for them. And that changes things. I mean, it used to be like, we have a dollar for dollar match up to 5%. Great. That only goes to retirement. How do we rethink that, where we say, we have a dollar for dollar match up to 5%. You choose where that match goes. That's the only way you as an employer can maximize the ROI on a benefit dollar. You only have so many benefit dollars. You can't decide where that benefit dollar is going to add the most value to an employee. If you let the employee decide, then you're maximizing the ROI on a benefit dollar spend. So that's the change in thinking we need.
Man, that's really interesting.
That's an interesting point. I want to follow up on that. We're going from a world where things were kind of downward directed. You know, company leaders at the top in the boardrooms and what have you would sit around and have, you know, benefits companies, HR companies, you know, come in and pitch them, and they'd come up with whatever programs they thought that, you know, were right for them, and they inked the deal. And how many times are employees in the room helping them make that decision? How many committees did they make, you know, that represent every aspect of the company to reflect in those kind of broader decisions? And these are 3, 5, whatever year decisions. I mean, these contracts with companies are not just you know, month by month, pay as you want to go. No, these are long-term things that are very complex and complicated. They take a while to implement, train people, get them accustomed to it. And it's all downward directed. And employees feel like this is happening to me, not with me.
There's no choice.
And as Jeanne, you know, so eloquently, you know, put it, or I'm sorry, Jeannie, so eloquently put that, it is the great reckoning. Employees have gained control of the conversation and said, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to be mandated to do what you think is best when you don't even know me. I never even see the C-suite come around but once every, you know, 3 months or something for a you know, some kind of a get together. We need what we need and what works for us. You know, one of the big things I want Jeannie to talk about here in a few minutes is childcare. Everybody wants to work. Everybody wants to contribute and feel like they're making the world a better place. Everybody wants to make some money and thrive individually and collectively. But one of the major hurdles is childcare, and very few people are dealing with that one thing that's holding people back.
Yeah. Wow. So before we even get to some of the specifics of just new and exciting ways that people can think about benefits, what are just some of the very first steps, Jeannie, that people in the executive sphere, the C-suite, managers and owners of companies, what are some just mindset shifts? You said it was a great reckoning. What are some very beginning steps that people can take just in their mindset to be open to the idea that they might need to change their benefit packages up a little bit?
The first is you no longer hold the power.
Yep.
If you're trying to, you know, entertain new employees. The second is, you know, for years, our industry, particularly health insurance and retirement plans, has been strongly governed by, I joke around, I call her Nanny ERISA. ERISA is, you know, the legislation or the regulation that we have to follow. And she's stodgy and she's old and clunky, you know, and she's a little rule follower. So when I bring up some new and fresh ideas, people tend to say, well, that will never work. We won't pass testing. We're not allowed to do that. And I kind of have to shake them out of it and say, you know, those old plans are governed by ERISA. These are new benefits. They aren't governed by the same rules that you're used to. So think outside the box, right? Don't just rely on all these, well, we can or we can't, because it's not necessarily true anymore on a lot of the new benefits that are being created.
Man, that's true. And so what I feel like I hear you saying is just knowledge is power. So the ability to know about the benefits that are offered and just things that are available according to the you know, governing rules and laws is one of the very first steps into opening.
Ignorance is power. Ignorance is power in this scenario. Right now, we have too many people so stuck in the old ways and thinking they know what has to be done, that they're not open and creative to what is being done, what is being developed. So that's why I say ignorance is power, because the first hurdle we run into is people saying, well, we can't do it that way. And it's like, why? If your first reaction to any new idea is we can't do it that way, then you're not ever going to have any new ideas. So I'm like, ignorance is power.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Well, Joel, I want to piggyback on that. That's another great point. Is this really the Great Reckoning? Is this really a COVID thing? Is it what are we really dealing with here? And in my humble but yet expert opinion, I think this is really about leadership.
Yeah. Tell me how it's about leadership, Jason.
This is really about leadership, because leadership ultimately takes the pen and inks the deals that Jeanne's talking about, regardless if it's in the box or out of the box kind of things. It's about mindset. This is about leadership. This is about how you set the tone. And so when I coach people at the C-suite level, well, at any level, you always have a challenge. What's the challenge? Well, we need to find good people. We have 40 million jobs open, and we can't find 40 million people. Well, people aren't staying. People aren't doing this. People. Okay, great. What are your options that you have at your disposal to even look at? Hey, are you even knowledgeable, as Jeanne says, about your options that you have in the world today? 99% of the people are not. They know about the set of options they've been used to looking at. They're maybe familiar with their neighbors' options that they talk about in the backyard when they're grilling and drinking beer on the weekends. But are they really, truly going out and looking at their options? It's funny because people will go out and they will study new car. They want to go out, hey, my car's old and clunky. It left me on the road yesterday. I need a new car. And they'll spend hours, looking online, and they'll test drive different things, and they'll spend all this time trying to pick out a car, but yet they're running a business. They have all these options they probably don't even know about, but yet spend very little time with folks like Jeanne to even find out what new potential options could be in play, and how to mix them and match them, and how to create the perfect thing for them at that point in time.
Man, that sounds great. Well, let's dip our toes into the new school then, friends. We've talked a little bit about just the shortcomings of a lot of the members of leadership of companies just in this country, I'm sure all over the world. Jeanne, give us a little bit of an introduction to what you are so passionate about, and just the benefits that are available to the workforce today that they should be looking for, and that owners and managers and executives should be striving for and trying to become more knowledgeable about.
Well, let's jump into the good stuff first, and then we can kind of wrap up with the flexible schedules and the 4-day work week. But let's start with the ones that I think most employers have blinders on. And that is, I introduced myself to you earlier before we even started the show. I used to be a 401k advisor. I used to be a 401k consultant, and that is my day job still. But a lot of times we're talking about financial benefits, because a lot of the new benefit ideas that are rolling out are not meant to serve you 60 years in retirement. They're meant to serve the financial needs of the population today, which is a huge driver for many of our people looking for jobs or looking to change jobs. So I'm talking about benefit packages that, of course, address student loans, address saving for your children's college, address building an emergency savings account. These are all things that can now be facilitated through an employer in a benefit package that's actually going to speak probably better to most of your employees than retirement.
That's really interesting. So benefits loaded, if I'm hearing you correctly, on just things that they can actually take hold of today, more so than just this far-reaching 30 years down the road kind of retirement.
Exactly.
Does that sound
financial
right?
benefits, immediate financial needs. We all know what the student loan issue is. The biggest misconception is that only our Gen Z and millennials have that issue. That's inaccurate. The generation with the highest average student loan is Gen Xers. We have a number of baby boomers that are still suffering under PLUS loans, the parent student loans that they took out for their kids. We have a number who can't retire because they're still saddled with student debt. So there's this assumption that it's only the young kids who are struggling with it. It's not accurate. It's extremely important at this point in time because currently we have a freeze on federal student loan programs. That's going to end. I say that. It should end in August because they've kicked the can down the road. But polls show that 93% of people who have student loan payments are not ready to start them back up and are not able to finance them. If you have not been making your student loan payment for 2.5 years now, it's hard to start that payment again. So that's an immediate need. Then you have people trying to save for their children's college. And one thing the pandemic showed us is that most people don't have the appropriate emergency savings set aside. So if you look at it from a 401k advisor's perspective, we're supposed to go out there, and rightly so. I obviously think retirement is a good thing to do. But we're to encourage people to save money. Congratulations, your match employer is going to give everybody a match towards their retirement account. That's fantastic. Except you can't access your retirement account until you're 59 and a half without having a penalty. And the number of people, half of Americans actually need to build an emergency savings account before they even start inside the retirement plan. And we need to reshift that. We need to reset that.
Tell us a little bit about just the very specific avenues that people can go down to reach those goals. Are these just entirely new packages? Do they need to switch their companies that are providing these benefits? What are some just like really practical ways that people can take steps towards finding these new kinds of benefits?
So we're in a really interesting legislative environment currently because there is pending legislation, particularly on the student loan and 401k, that will forever tie the two. We have broken down all the barriers we need at this point, except for one tiny administrative burden that is testing at the end of the year that many of us expect to be resolved legislatively by the end of this year. So from a student loan perspective and a 401k perspective, I fully believe in the next 3 years, most companies will have a match that the employee decides if it goes to the student loan or the 401k. And on the face of it, it won't make much of a difference from the employer perspective. As for the others, what they really are, they're basically employer deducted pay programs. So, for example, the 529, I could elect to make, and student loans can be this way today too. I can elect to make a contribution to my child's 529 directly from my paycheck. You're going to deduct $100 of my pay. The employer can then match it. And then a third-party administrator then actually processes it into the accounts. Same for emergency savings, same for student loans. Now, this does a couple of things. One, it makes your employees stickier. So imagine if you have an employee who's like, man, they take my student loan payment from my paycheck, right? Imagine you're facilitating all of this. And imagine that the employer is actually putting a match on it. When we're educating to the value of these, we can sit there and say, not only is your employer giving you $100 a month towards your student loans, but it's projected to save you X of thousands of dollars over the next 10 years because it's a cash contribution to you that is going against your interest that's being earned.
Wow. Man.
So it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, I want to add on that too. When you talk about 529s, you're talking about your kids' college savings. Well, one way to do that is not have a 529. 529s are great if you already have a Roth IRA and you're maxing out the contributions because the Roth IRAs give you more of an advantage and flexibility to use the money and withdraw things in times of need and crisis. In Jeanne's part of the country, they experience a tornado. People need access to money and support and resources. And there are certain rules that will allow people to leverage that money, their hard-earned money they've been racking up, for college, for, various things that a 529 can. It's very, kind of fenced off type of funding. And so, when you talk about benefits, you got to think kind of outside that box. 529 sounds great, but if somebody's not maxing out a Roth IRA first, why even take them down that path? Why can't the employer, and with the benefits programs and facilitators like Jeanne and her folks, guide people through that discussion and personalize that to them to where it works specifically for them and their needs today, and also, taking them into the future as well.
And briefly, before we move on from the 401k, just topic in general, what are some ways that people can beef up their 401k programs for specifically retirement? Are there new options for those kinds of things, or are those just kind of the same as they've always been?
The 401k has undergone the biggest transformation recently than it probably has since its invention. And there's new stuff constantly coming out. There is currently legislation pending about annuitizing, basically pensionizing a 401k. A lot of people respect and understand what it means when they get a check, like a pension check in retirement. So on the horizon of the 401k, you're going to see companies adopting the option where an employee can choose to basically pensionize their 401k bucket when they retire. That's just something new and different. But from an employer perspective, to me, where you get the most bang for your buck, a lot of things are automated, auto enroll, a target date fund, and those work well. But what we really need is participant education and communication. That is what most people need. And our team is constantly trying to think of ways that we can better connect with our participants. We have adopted a vlog. We do a ton of videoing. We do a ton of quick messaging. And we just got an email from a client that was like, hey, we sent out a postcard during benefits enrollment with the QR code. They're a trucking company, so they have a lot of people on the roads. Would you do one for our 401k? And I'm like, that's brilliant. You know, how many companies have thought to do a 4x6 postcard with QR codes for open enrollment? What a great idea. So just meeting employees where they want to be met, when they want to be met, which a lot of times is after hours, and in the medium that they can actually understand.
Yeah, sounds like it makes all the difference in the world. Man, let's switch over to one that's a little closer to my heart for sure. But how about benefits for parents with children? What are some ways that we can rethink those things as we go forward out of the pandemic?
So we know that about 3 million women in particular left the workforce during COVID. You know, I referenced earlier, it's about getting our people back into the labor pool. Our unemployment rate is low. Our unemployment rate's at 3.4%. That is low. We just don't have a big enough labor pool. So what we want to do first and foremost is express empathy to our parents that are in the workforce. Even though the COVID days, thank God, are over, where I had a kindergartner and a second grader at home doing homeschooling while working, thank goodness. You know, I joke that, guess what? For parents, COVID happens every summer, every single summer. Yep. We don't have childcare. So, you know, one, expressing empathy, but two, being really creative about how you can help those people. So one idea that I have is a bonus or a reimbursement or a credit for summer camps. You know, you're going to send your kid to a summer camp. Here's $100. Here's $200. That helps a parent for a week in the summer. We also need to be flexible with the time. We need to recognize that parents need that flexibility. We need business places that have the opportunity for children to be on site. You know, if possible, bring your kid to work day. If you are, and this podcast, I believe, focuses on executives. So if you're a high-powered female that maybe travels frequently for work and you have a new child and you're nursing, we all know there's a baby formula shortage right now. Wouldn't it be nice if your employer offered to pay for a traveling companion to go with you so that you could travel and take your baby and nurse? And when you're in the meeting or you're doing your presentation, your traveling companion is there to take care of your child. So it'd be like, you know, okay, mom, I'm going on a business trip. Will you ride along with me? These are all just different ways that you can understand what challenges working parents are facing and do little things to show that you care and you're trying to help them.
I think that's the truth. Jason, what do you think on those things?
I love it. I love this outside the box thinking because they're problems are problems. You know, hey, I'm working hard. I got a big deal to close in Chicago, and I've got to travel. And just so happened that the daycare is closed down for the week, and I don't have childcare. What do you do? What do you do? Cancel the meeting? Probably not. It's too important of a meeting, right? So I love that. I love that outside the box thinking. I mean, even if they didn't travel with you, you know, when I was in the military, I was gone all the time. My wife was left with our girls and the dog and everything else, and just being able to support her, you know, just even things like one of the things the military did when I was gone is I had an appliance issue, I had a plumbing problem, and you know they brought somebody out to fix that problem for my wife free of charge. They have partnerships with vendors that want to support the troops, want to support whatever. There's a lot of different ways to approach these problems and think outside the box. Even, you know, one time my wife's mom came up and stayed a few months with us, you know, but, you know, she's elderly and retired and got some medical issues, and, you know, her traveling and getting there was a really, really big deal. We had to get a bunch of people in the family together to kind of arrange all the travel and stuff. And it would just be nice if there was other ways to facilitate that and, you know, give somebody the ability to do what needs to happen for them that's easy for them and everybody involved. So I love Jeanne's outside the box thinking. It's innovative, it's kind of breakthrough, and it's kind of grassroots. You're getting away from policy and words in a 4 million page document that outlines their benefits and insurance and all this formal stuff, and it breaks it down on a real personal level and say, hey, you know, if you've got some child care issue, let's figure out how to solve that and what works for you. One of the challenges I think that we're going through right now, and again, it's kind of this top down, is empowering your supervisors and mid-level managers and direct leaders on being able to give them boundaries and give them options that they can work directly with their staff because they know them better than anybody in the boardroom.
Yeah.
So empower those folks, give them, a lot of different, options to kind of choose from and help cobble together the right thing for them. I love it. Jeanne's great.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know about you, but I got sent up to summer camp for like months at a time during the summer. So give my parents a little bit of a break. Thank goodness. Oh, man. Let's switch over to something that's, I don't know if it's a hot button topic, but it's something that not a lot of people can wrap their minds around, I would say right now. It's kind of like the idea of electric vehicles maybe 5 or 10 years ago. But the 4-day work week. Tell us a little bit about what you think about the 4-day work week, Ms. Jeanne.
I'm so passionate about it. I'm passionate about flexible work schedules anyway, because that's what the world demands now. But, a couple of misconceptions about the 4-day work week is that it's just impossible. And I want to break down those initial barriers to begin with. The 4-day work week is not impossible. Prior to the assembly line at the Ford factory plant, women and men and children were working 72 hours a work week. So it wasn't that long ago that we went from a 72-hour work week to a 40-hour work week. And the godfather of the assembly line is the one who really implemented it and pushed it forward. So I push buttons with the 4-day work week because so many in leadership and executive teams are like, absolutely not. No way, this is never going to work. But if I can at least get them thinking that way, maybe I can back them into flexible schedules. But the thing about the 4-day work week is the change in mindset by leadership. Okay. Where are you paying people for time or are you paying people for productivity? That's what each leadership team needs to ask themselves. As a firm owner, I want to pay for productivity. I don't care when you do it and what time you get it done. I want to pay for productivity. And if you agree that that's your goal, whether it be, good customer service or production or output, whatever it is, then why not work with your employees to create an environment where they can be relaxed? A 4-day work week is proven to have less PTO, less time off, less absences, less burnout, less stress, higher job satisfaction. This is all happening regularly in companies and countries, by the way. There are full countries that have implemented a 4-day work week. And the people who say, there's people who say it can never happen, but if you actually look at the studies, the average American worker wastes 2 hours a day at work. We waste 2 hours a day at work on LinkedIn, looking at homes, water cooler chat, unnecessarily long meetings, unnecessary meetings to begin with, right? So if we waste 2 hours every day at work, 2 times 4, Monday through Thursday is 8, that's your Friday. Like my argument is we're already working a 4-day work week. We're just dragging it to 5 days.
Man, that's really interesting.
Yep.
Jason, what do you think about that? Do you think some of the people you coach would be open to the ideas of a 4-day work week?
Well, some of them have implemented that.
Really?
I worked in an organization many years ago, and it was, very structured, very hierarchical and old school kind of ways of doing things. And we went through kind of a transformational thing, and we didn't do 4-day work weeks. We worked a compressed schedule. And so you work Monday through Friday 1 week. The second week of the month, you worked Monday through Thursday. And so every other week, you have a 3-day weekend. So two times a month, you have a 3-day weekend, right? And everybody loved it. And you did get more efficiency. You did get less usage of sick time and burnout. And I mean, one of the problems today is people are just burnt out.
Yeah.
They are just worked to death. And then you got all the other, things going on in the world that surround the world we live in and some of the craziness. And it's just overwhelming. And they just want peace. They want options. They want a life. Work is, we've kind of had it backwards for a long time in America. America, we're just, driving innovation, driving new technology, be the best, be the strongest, toughest military in the world, everything, we're the best, right? And we're a great country. We're one of the best countries out there in the world. However, how we go about things sometimes is not the best way. And so when you take the time, like Jeanne says, to actually look at the data, when you actually talk to people that go through these types of things and understand those dynamics and what's really going into them, and allowing that array of options to customize a work environment around people that works best for them, they will be as productive as you need them to be. They will show up proud and adamant about not letting you down, because they get to live the life they want to live. Work is most people work to live. We've talked about this before on this podcast, but sometimes in America, it feels like we're living to work. It's just, this competition, and everybody's, competing against everybody. And it's just, arm wrestling every day of the week. And it's like a big grind and a fight. And at the end of the day, the great reckoning, as Jeanne says, it's really about how do we work? How do we take work and do that better, smarter, and more efficiently, so we can enjoy a better life that's ideal for us, whether you want to live on the beach, or when you live in the mountains, or live on a lake, or live wherever you want to live. It's really about a quality life of just being happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And not having to send your kids to summer camp for months at a time.
Well, that's always an option too, but whatever works.
Man, what are some just practical ways that we as a culture, you think, could move towards this shift at a large scale? Because obviously, like you're saying, like, and I agree. I've seen it in a few cases as well. Like, the companies that are latching hold of this idea are really succeeding well with it. So what's it going to take for all of us to get there?
So the idea of a 4-day or a shortened work week is only going to work if both parties see it as a contract and they uphold their side of the contract. So the employer is saying, look, we're willing to give you a 3-day weekend every weekend, so long as on your side of the contract, you're willing to give us maximum productivity, right? You're willing to put in a strong 4 days. So I think, one, this is not just something that employers are going to give employees, right? And it's going to take both sides to basically meet this collective agreement. But the real issue, I believe, when it comes to implementing this idea, is that it has to be believed and lived by the leadership. So you might come up with a 4-day work week plan, or summer Fridays, every other Friday you get off, or okay, if you work better from 6 to 4 or 6 to 3, you can work that time. And if you work better from 10 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night, like, you can come up with all these flexible arrangements just to be more accommodating for your employees. But if your management team is still there 5 days a week from 8 to 5, it will never be adopted, ever. So whatever any company tries to adopt from a flexible or remote work schedule, it has to be implemented by the leadership team constantly, or the others won't do it.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. Goes back to my original comment. This is really a leadership challenge that leadership has to get their arms around and think differently. It's okay to be comfortable being uncomfortable. This is the new norm. And you can't expect, do things to make everybody happy, and then the leadership not set the example. The other thing that I see that's a challenge here too, that should be a significant change in the mindset of the leadership, is how they lead. You can't lead and manage people in the office the same as the way you do it in a hybrid situation,
Yeah.
remote work. Remote work requires different levels of leadership and engagement as it is in the office or any other situation. Everything is situational. And if you're going to go to a 3-day work week, if you're going to operate in a different manner and make it more flexible and agile, that's great. That's what I think the future, is about. I think that's how people are going to be successful. But leadership has to adapt and change and figure out how to do that, because it changes how you communicate, how often you communicate, the degree in which you follow up and delegate, and bring people together, keep people on the same page, keep people focused on common goals and objectives, even though they're remote, even though they work different shifts and different schedules that's best for them. At the end of the day, all that work has to come back to the company and achieve some goal, some objective in a synergetic way. That required some skilled leadership, and most companies that I see and deal with out there today are really, really strong. I work with a very large, national corporation in Nashville, Jeanne, that is going through this leadership dynamic right here, right now. And it's all about leadership. And they've had people in the company for, over 20 years. A majority of their leaders have been in the company for over 20 years, and they just don't know what they don't know and are struggling in these situations. And we are having to make some big waves to make the changes they need to really set them up for success going forward.
Yeah, and as our time kind of escapes us here, and we kind of draw to a close, our usual listeners will be very familiar with the idea and the true aspects of the fact that leadership is essentially the most important aspect of your personal success as an executive, as a leader in your company, but ultimately over the retention of your workforce. Like it has practical implications in every way. As we wrap up, Miss Jeanne, just kind of a final question, something practical for the people that listen to our show. What are just some of the top three, maybe just the top three things that employers can implement into their benefit structure right now that will really make a difference with where we're at in the world?
So the first thing I'm going to say is empathy and communication. I tend to work a lot with HR professionals who are maybe waiting for the C-suite or leadership to make final decisions. But that often means they're the front line of complaining employees, leadership mad that we're having trouble retaining. We need to improve our communication, and we need to do so empathetically. I understand it is a challenge for you to work with 2 small children, and we're working on a solution. That can be done right away. You can change how you communicate right away. As far as, the actual benefits package, to me, if you really haven't been evaluating student loan options in plan relative to the 401k or out of plan, I think you're already starting to fall behind. I really do believe it's going to be a given in most companies in a few years. And it is one of the number one reasons why employees commit to a company these days. And then the last thing that I would say from a benefit perspective is just reimagining PTO. We didn't really get into this, but this one is, to me, an easy fix. I think it's a pretty easy one to change. If you're not allowing rollover PTO, I have seen just actually starting to let employees cash that out at the end of the year be a huge boon. And you can actually take it one step further and allow that cashed out PTO to be a deferral into the 401k, a contribution to a student loan, all of those other things. So again, reimagining the financial benefits package, you're going to pay for it. You've budgeted these benefits. Let the employee choose where that's going to add the most value to them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Any nuggets of wisdom you want to add on to there, Mr. Jason? Those are some real and amazing practical things.
Jeannie's awesome. I'm so glad she's on the show. She's got some amazing, just out of this box thinking, just like she said. And the only thing I would add is, if you are a leader, a decision maker in a company, and you're struggling to figure out what the future of your company looks like, and certainly around your number one asset, and that's people, just talk to experts. Bring people in or go to them and start learning about what's out there. There's a lot of new things going on. There's a lot of companies that have adapted and changed things and are evolving things all the time post-COVID, like Jeanne and her company. That can be breakthrough kind of stuff for you. This stuff doesn't, cost millions of dollars. This isn't going to saddle you down. These are easy, simple things that kind of get on the grassroots level and help people be successful. That's what a leader and an employer needs to do, is what needs to happen for you to come here and be part of a great organization. How can we help you be successful? What do you need? Let's make it happen. Let's get to work, and let's have a great journey together.
Man, that's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Man. And we want to just thank you so much, Miss Jeanne, for being willing to pipe into the show today from the beautiful city of Nashville. It has been a very much of a pleasure to have you on with us today.
Thank you, guys.
And for everyone else, thank you so much for listening to the Soar Higher podcast with Jason Ballard. All of our social links for LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram will be in the show notes. Please like and subscribe those. We're always looking for new ways to interact with you, our listeners, so please reach out if there's anything you'd like us to cover or talk about. You can find the wonderful Miss Jeanne at her company that she works with, Strategic Retirement Partners, online at srpretire.com. That's srpretire.com, and she is the 401k lady, so you can follow her on all of the socials that will also be linked in on the show notes. If you're interested in learning more about Jason and his work as a business and executive coach, you can visit soarhighercoaching.com. That's soarhighercoaching.com, and join us next week as we provide more insight on how to overcome the latest business and career challenges people are facing today in the workforce. We'll see you next week. what I feel like I hear you saying is just knowledge is power. So the ability to know about the benefits that are offered and just things that are available according to the governing rules and laws is one of the very first steps into opening.
Ignorance is power. Ignorance is power in this scenario. Right now, we have too many people so stuck in the old ways and thinking they know what has to be done, that they're not open and creative to what is being done, what is being developed. So that's why I say ignorance is power, because the first hurdle we run into is people saying, well, we can't do it that way. And it's like, why? If your first reaction to any new idea is we can't do it that way, then you're not ever going to have any new ideas. So I'm like, ignorance is power.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So we're in a really interesting legislative environment currently because there is pending legislation, particularly on the student loan and 401k, that will forever tie the two. We have broken down all the barriers we need at this point, except for one tiny administrative burden that is testing at the end of the year that many of us expect to be resolved legislatively by the end of this year. So from a student loan perspective and a 401k perspective, I fully believe in the next 3 years, most companies will have a match that the employee decides if it goes to the student loan or the 401k. And on the face of it, it won't make much of a difference from the employer perspective.
How about benefits for parents with children? What are some ways that we can rethink those things as we go forward out of the pandemic?
Even though the COVID days, thank God, are over, where I had a kindergartner and a second grader at home doing homeschooling while working, thank goodness. I joke that, guess what? For parents, COVID happens every summer, every single summer.
Yep.
We don't have childcare. So, one, expressing empathy, but two, being really creative about how you can help those people. So one idea that I have is a bonus or a reimbursement or a credit for summer camps. You're going to send your kid to a summer camp. Here's $100. Here's $200. That helps a parent for a week in the summer.